Hey folks, still week 7, chapter 17, that creating a compelling vision. So just wanted to, again, give you another little story, understand one thing to give us insight into something else. So this quote right here, this is one of my favorites, and I think it's just a tremendous leadership quote is what it is. Instead of assigning people to do stuff and that they're complying because you tell them, teach them to aspire and dream for something bigger, to long for this. And then when they long for it, they will willingly come along. They will want to. It just changes their perspective. Wonderful leadership quote. So I'm going to give you a little story here in a little bit that also has to deal with a big body of water. That's actually Lake Superior up in Minnesota. We took that at the end of our Mexico to Canada bike ride. So before we get too far, I need to go back and revisit, and I left this kind of weird edge around it on purpose. This is from the Leadership is as Teamwork presentation from earlier, and I wanted to go back and remind you of this. I brought it up at the time. I talked about a lighthouse when we talked about coping with change versus complexity. So this is John Kotter. Actually, I'm going to go right here. This is John Kotter down here, What Leaders Really Do, one of those management classics from 1990. And so we talked about with management, as we've already kind of played with this term, management about complexity. It's all the different things that have to be done and arranged and put together and planned. That's what management does. Where leadership is about change. So as things change, that we have something solid, that we know where we're going. And so despite all this stuff blowing around and changing around us, we have a common vision as to where we're going, and that can help us. The vision can help us get there. So again, this topic, this skill, is about creating a compelling vision, but I'm also lumping it in with change. So before leaving this, though, we're going to talk about this. So where management, according to Kotter, is more concerned with planning, getting things, foresee things and try to take care of them, what it's going to cost, and budgeting, and make sure that we're all have everything that we need. Okay, he talks about setting a direction, getting everybody turned in the same direction, and then aligning people. So instead of just organizing and staffing, making sure we have people in the right places, now we're going to get them all in line with each other. And I remember one of the old books I had almost talked about a magnet, and how a magnet, when you strike it and all the little electrons and things spin around, that a magnetized piece of metal can do things that an ordinary piece can't do. And it's because everything's aligned. They're not all spinning off in different directions. Think about the leadership lenses. We're not just, spreading that light everywhere. We're really kind of aligned, and we have a direction, and we know where we're going. And then this last one is about motivating people. So again, go back to that last quote, is getting people to long for the endless immensity of the sea. These are the leadership things. And I think that they all relate back to this idea of vision. All right, let me tell you a story, and then I hope within this story it'll make sense and we'll pull it all together. So my dad's an old retired college professor, but something fun that we used to do when I was in high school and lived there in Gainesville at the University of Florida is we would go canoe. And so that part of north central Florida just had a lot of lakes and rivers and springs. And then we were just like right in the middle of the state, an hour and a half to each coast. But we particularly liked to go canoeing on rivers and lakes. And so there was one time, this 441 and even 301 over here go up by Gainesville. So it's about maybe 45 minutes south of Gainesville. But there was one time we came down to Orange Lake. And as I recall, we put in right here and we paddled out across the lake. And it was a typical summer Saturday in Florida. You can have clear skies, but in Florida, storms can kick up. So kind of foreshadowing things to come. We put in here, we paddled around and came out over here. And then we went over here because this is an interesting place in that part of the state. It's called Cross Creek. And this Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings is one who wrote a book called The Yearling. And in that part of the state, Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings and the Yearling book is a big thing. And they've got a historic site right here. So she lived on Cross Creek, which, if you can imagine, is a creek that runs between Orange Lake and Lochloosa Lake over here. And so you could paddle in here, and there's just kind of a narrow little channel, and you can go right by the historic site, and then you can come out over here and paddle in this lake too. And so what happened was we were over here and we paddled across and we went through the Cross Creek and we came out over here and we were in Lochloosa, and all of a sudden the wind started kicking up and we could see in the distance that a storm was coming. And we realized that being in a metal boat out in the middle of a lake with no protection, with lightning as a strong possibility, was not the place we needed to be. So what we did is we turned around really quick and as fast as we could paddle, this is a long way, we paddled right back through Cross Creek. And by the time we got back out onto the lake, the wind was really blowing. And if you're in a canoe with a big wide side, the waves are pushing on you, and you got to kind of position yourselves. You don't want the waves to hit you broadside. That'll kind of knock you over. We didn't want to flip over. So you kind of have to have your bow pointing into the waves to a certain degree. But with the wind blowing and you're just paddling, the wind was pushing us, the waves were pushing us. But we could see in the distance the boat ramp, and it was just a little break among the trees, but you could see where it was. And so as we were getting pushed around on this lake, trying to get back, we just stayed focused on that boat ramp. The boat ramp is where we needed to be, and so it didn't matter how blown around we got or pushed by the waves or the weird route that we had to take, because we couldn't just go straight back to it because of the waves. As long as we knew where that boat ramp was, we knew how to get back. Okay, that is and always been in my mind after studying leadership and management and all these organizational issues. Long after doing that, when I was in high school or college with my dad, that's the image that's always stuck into my head. A leader provides the boat ramp through that vision, through that compelling place and state that we want to be. Then as things change and get blown around and emergencies pop up and things that we thought were going to work don't work, as we have to keep modifying and adapting and changing and reacting to the environment, as long as we have that constant vision of here's where we want to be, that's going to be the unifying thing that keeps us all moving in the right direction and all aligned. So just again, kind of another little story, metaphor. It's always kind of served my brain well to kind of remember that day and to remember that experience, and then relate it back to leadership and the idea of vision and having those goals and making sure everybody knows where they're going. So I hope that helped. Keep playing with it. Thanks.